Hey, MYB, Champ Ron here, host of the Minding Your Business podcast. Thank you for joining us. You're right back with us. I definitely appreciate that. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. As I said, episode 239 of the podcast. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Five star, wherever you get your pods. Helps us to continue to grow the MYB community. And of course, you can always catch up with me at www.champronbrooks.com. That's champronbrooks.com. Make sure to text me 312-847-4071. I'd love to connect with you. No BS, no bots, no none of that. You can text direct with me. I'd love to be able to send you my free ebook on investing in real estate with little to no money down. I'll give that to you free if you text me at 312-847-4071. Hopefully you guys are feeling pretty good after spending a little time at the Capitol building in DC last week. So hopefully you're ready to hear after you spend a little time there and got a little frustration out of your system, I guess. I kid. I know none of you guys were there. Yep, and I know you were just as appalled as the rest of us, right? So hopefully had a good first week of 2000. Welcome to 2021, where we raid the Capitol building with no security. And as much time I lived in DC for a little bit, and many times as I've gone up to the Capitol building and been stopped like 1,000 yards away, it was just interesting to see someone that can sit at Nancy Pelosi's desk and that's an opener mail, take her mail, and that sort of thing. That's interesting. But anyway, hope podcast finds you well. Listen, I'm interested in learning from today's guest as you are, and I'm excited to have him. Chris Kenney joins us. He's a sought after wealth mentor and has Chris Kenney Consulting. And for those that are watching, if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching the video, he's got a really cool setup. He's a really sharp guy. I love his style. Really great background here. And so, Chris, thank you so much for taking time, man, to join us today. It's tremendous for you to take time out here on a Monday to unite with us here on the Minding Your Business podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And I love your tagline. There's no business like minding your own. I mean, I hadn't heard that before. That's super good. That's money right there. That's really good. And I think we were all at the Capitol building last week, whether we wanted to be or not. Because if you turn on the TV, you were at the Capitol building.
That's true. I had a business colleague, because I had not been watching the news that morning, Chris, and I had a colleague that called me and said, do you see what's going on in Washington? And I was like, oh, what's going on now? They voting on something or doing whatever. I didn't think anything big of it. And she's like, no, turn it on. So I turned it on. I started going through the channel. I was like, what is going on? What in the world?
Yeah. It's like, I don't watch the news at all. It's interesting. I usually hear about it from the odd thing is I knew nothing about it until I got a message from my brother who actually lives in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
He knew about it, but I didn't know about it.
But you didn't know.
American. But I just never turn on the television for the news. So, and I'm not on Facebook, so there was no way I was gonna know about it right away. But yeah, that's horrific.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing, interesting times, no doubt about it. But Chris, let's jump right in for yourself. For those that aren't familiar with you, share kind of your journey, your pathway to get to where you are today.
Yeah, well, where I am now is what I'm really doing and helping people do is I'm helping primarily coaches and consultants. Those are my primary clients, coaches and consultants. And what I teach is how to position, package, and sell high ticket programs. So people will come to me, they might be selling a coaching program for $3,000, $5,000, and they want to learn how to reposition that, repackage that, or sell that for maybe $25,000, $50,000. Some of them are creating 100K programs. How do you do that? Where do you find buyers for that kind of stuff? So that's where I am now. But the journey, my gosh, it's been fantastic, but it's been incredibly eventful. It started in 2008. I left corporate America. I had a really successful selling job. I was working as a salesperson for a national payroll company, doing really well at it. But Champ Ron, I've ever had that, like, it wasn't fulfilling. It was like, and every time I was crushing it, doing really, really well, but then they would raise my quotas again, and then my quota would go up again, and my territory would get smaller. And it was like, I was working for this corporate machine, and I just said there's got to be something else for me. So I completely burned out of it, took the risk in 2008. I don't know how many of you remember, but we were in the middle of a recession in
Absolutely.
2008, and everybody said, don't walk away from the steady paycheck. Are you out of your mind? But took the leap, took the risk. And really what legitimately happened for me was I read, and this is true, I read one self-development book. And the self-development book I read, and everybody says we have a book that changed our lives. Well, this book
Right.
was the book that changed my life. It
Yeah.
was a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
Okay.
So I read this book, and I was like, whoa, my God, this is incredible. I love all these concepts, and I was really lit up by it. And then I got to the back of the book, and he had this instructor's manual for how to run a lunch and learn. And I decided, well, I'm going to run a workshop. I'm going to run a self-development workshop with this content. So I
Yeah.
launched this workshop, which in launch was I went to my networking group, which had 23 people in it that I'd been networking payroll services for the last several years. So they all knew me really well. And I said, I'm going to do this workshop. So to my surprise, 14 people signed up for this workshop.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, I charged a whopping $147 for this workshop.
Okay.
$147. One of the people that came through that workshop was a top director in Mary Kay Cosmetics. And she said, would you come and speak to my group? So
Wow.
I said, okay, I'll go speak to your group. Now, mind you, I'd never spoken publicly in my entire life.
Yeah.
And so I go, and this group is 85 people, and obviously 85 women, because it was Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Right.
My knees were buckling. I'm sweating. I'm a mess. So I get up in front of this room. I was literally in the bathroom 15 minutes before I was supposed to be on
So
stage.
all women. So 85 women, they're all staring a
85
hole
women.
through you.
And I've never spoken publicly before. I mean, so here's what happens. They gave me 15 minutes. This still cracks me up to this day. They gave me 15 minutes, and I had rehearsed that 15 minutes like 17,000 times because I'd never spoken in front of a group that size before. So I was like totally prepped. It was 14 minutes, 59 seconds. I mean, I had this thing
To the T.
down, right? So I get up and I lead the 15 minutes. And what ended up happening was the MC of the event, I finished the 15 minutes, and I was still like excited that I was still vertical, right?
Yeah.
I think I stayed vertical, right?
That's right. That was your goal.
Man, my goal is to stay vertical. Don't pass out, right? So she says, how many of you are really enjoying Chris Kenney? How many of you are loving Chris Kenney? And the whole room went, woo! She handed me the microphone, Champron, and she goes, keep going.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. So
I didn't plan beyond 14 minutes and 59 seconds.
I got it's what I got. You know what I mean? So I was like, I still don't know. I'd have to watch it. I don't know what I said. Apparently, I went for another 10 minutes, but I had read one self-development book called The Success Principles. So I probably went, well, let me talk about one of them principles. And I was like, and then I made an offer.
Yeah.
And the offer I made was, and I knew that people in direct sales companies were often really afraid of selling. So I had this workshop that I hadn't created yet. And it was called Boost Your Business by Overcoming Sales Call Reluctance. So I offered that training. There were 85 people in the room. 77 people bought the training.
Wow.
I went home and I was so green, Champron, that I was looking at the stack. I counted the stack. I said 77. I said, what the heck went wrong? Like, there's 8 people that didn't buy. What did I do wrong? I actually thought I had done something wrong. It was a $47 workshop. Long story cut short, that year I made $283,000 doing that workshop in front of different Mary Kay groups.
Wow.
And it was a specific title, a specific thing for a specific group. And that would be like my first piece of advice overall for anybody listening would be like, just remember the whole thing about riches and niches. There's riches and niches. The reason that worked is because I had a very specific thing, which was a workshop called Boost Your Business by Overcoming Sales Call Reluctance. And it was for a very specific audience. Yeah. So what ended up happening was I became very well known in that audience, and the word started traveling in the audience. So they just started referring me. and it was a specific thing. And that's how it became popular. So I think if it was a broader topic, I wouldn't have gotten the legs that I got on that whole thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that was really, really prevalent, and I think it was a huge lesson for any of you out there that are selling coaching or selling consulting services, that kind of thing. I sold things before I created them. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. Sell it before you create it.
Yeah.
Because what can happen is if you haven't sold it and you've got this idea and you're going to spend all this time creating this thing where you think people are actually going to buy it, but nobody's bought it. And then you spend 6 months creating it and then all of a sudden nobody buys it. You're in a really bad spot. So it's like, you want to have some proof of concept that people will buy this. So I always sold workshops before I created them. Sure. And that was what allowed me to build and build quickly. I never got tied up in, because when somebody buys it, Champion, guess what? Somebody buys the darn thing, you have it created.
Right.
Like you get it done because you have to, because somebody's giving you money. Right. And that was what was happening for me. So I did that. I worked in the Mary Kay market for a couple of years, and then I wanted to take my price points up. So I moved out of Mary Kay and I went into the solo entrepreneur market, and I worked in the solo entrepreneur market for quite a while. It was probably 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And then I realized I was getting hired primarily by coaches and consultants. And what I was teaching again and again and again was how to position, package, and sell high ticket programs. Yeah. So I niched myself even further. I went into the coach market first, and then I went into the coach market deeper and said, I'm in the coach market, but the thing that I get hired for is positioning, packaging, and selling high ticket programs. And then I've been doing that ever since then. And that's probably the last about 6 years. And the company, right now we're at about 2 million. Wow. So we do really well. $2 million company that operates with a 60% profit margin. Yeah. So very strong. Not only are we doing revenue, but we're running the company in a really profitable way. So I'm very grateful. But that's the journey. That's kind of the short version.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, as you were talking some about pre-selling, right? And that was interesting. As you pre-sell workshops, were you pre-selling kind of the concept or kind of the education topic, right? So like if you're doing one on, I don't know, doing, Zoom. So how to do, great Zoom presentations to executives, right? If that were, a workshop as an example, before you had that kind of created, you would somehow get into your market or kind of position it. And you're probably getting, primary data back from an audience that's saying, here's what we like to see in something like that. So one, we would want that training. I would pay money to get that training. Right. So I imagine you're starting there. Okay, that solves a problem for me. What is that problem? I'm on Zoom all the time. I need to be able to use it. I need to get an advantage over my peers or whatever it is to make sure I'm presenting things correctly. And then you're getting this, like I said, this primary data back of feedback from people that are telling you, here's how long, maybe here's, obviously online. I'd like to have some quizzes in it. Don't want quizzes, a lot of video, not a lot of video, whatever it is. And then you and your team are extracting that data, taking that in, synthesizing it, and then putting the package together based on what the majority of the feedback that's coming. Does that make sense? And is that kind of that's somewhat of the process?
That's some of the process. You're getting feedback from people along the way. Somebody says yes to something like that. You can give them an intake form that says, what would you like to take from this training? Well, what are your struggles in this area? And now you get all this data, and then you go, okay. And then you create the thing based on the data, which is so much more powerful than trying to create it based on a guess, based on guessing what people want. The other thing that you see when you do something like that, Champion, is you get to see the language that people describe the problem with.
Yes.
Like, how do they describe it? What words do they use to describe the problem? Because you want to make sure in all your marketing, you're communicating in a language that your potential client uses, not the language that you use. Like you might articulate the problem in one way, but they might articulate it in a completely different one. And you want to make sure that language is in alignment with them because they have to resonate with it.
Yeah, that's so true, Chris. And that brings me back even to my banking days. Many industries, and banking's one of them, they have a lot of jargon. there's a lot of acronyms and things like that. And it's easy to tell people, yeah, you really need an ADP because the ZBTC is going to really be a problem for you next year. So the ABC and the 1, 2, and we throw out all this jargon that makes sense to us, in different industries, but that's not the way, like you say, the end user or the customer describes the problem. I think that's a tremendous point. NYB, you should really take that as whether you're in business or you're looking to get into business, or even if you're in the workforce and you're, having to position things up and down throughout the organization. It's, understanding your audience, right? Being able to read the room and then be able to articulate and speak the same language as your end user. And I think, in many industries that becomes the case. I've seen it even in IT and information technology. Some of the best folks in those fields are ones that are able to take the technical terms and knowledge and then communicate that, in a business sense to, to end users, right? To the business people. I think that's a tremendous, because I think oftentimes we miss that, Chris. We get so caught up in what we like, and we think that because we like it or because it's a problem for us, that's going to be a problem for others. And we guess that, right? And so we go borrow money, we go do things, you know what I mean? We put these resources out, and then it puts us in a bond because now we've got the pressure of, the horse is already out of the barn, right?
Yeah.
And now you're trying to, herd him back in versus, like you say, that more strategic approach that that I've adopted and you've adopted, and I think many others are, and I recommend, which is, you kind of start tinkering, you kind of build a, kind of your initial prototype. You see it, does it fly, right? And then as it's flying, you add additions to it, right? Maybe it needs a second engine, maybe it needs another propeller, maybe it needs more seats, an extra wheel, whatever it is, you just add on to your plane or your device as you go.
And our current program, our flagship program, High Ticket Sales Mastery Mentorship, which is a multi-7-figure program.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a multi-7-figure program. We built it as we were flying it. We had 6 people in it before it had been launched.
Yeah.
It was at that time, it was a $15,000 program. Right now, today it's $21,000. And then for our next launch, which will be in April, it's going to $30,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. We had sold, we had 6 people in it. So it was 6 at 15K. So 30, 60. We'd sold 90,000 of the program when we hadn't created it yet. All we knew was like where the calls were going to be, how many calls there were going to be, and that kind of stuff. But we didn't know what the content was going to be. We didn't know, we had to create it as we went. But I've been doing that my whole career, and it makes such a massive difference. What we would do is we would just do delivery. Like drip delivery. So in other words, you have a call now, and then we have another call in 2 weeks. So all I got to prep right now is call 1. And then I just have to have call 2 ready within the next 2 weeks. You see what I mean? So, and in that 2 weeks, I'm getting feedback. I'm hearing from the people that are in the group, in the community. And then I go, okay, there's session 2. Okay. And then you got another break. And so you're dripping the content. And you're dripping content based on what's showing up in front of you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because many people, I think, have the idea of doing their own course, right? I've done courses in the past. I have ideas on some for the future, Chris, but, for what you recommend to people who are looking to start up their course, what are some maybe do's and don'ts, right? For those that are listening to this, that they can go back to their teams and kind of educate themselves on, here's some things, guys and girls, that we should be doing, right, as we look to launch our course. Of course, one of them we said about pre-selling, but in terms of the structure of it and that sort of thing, what are some things we should be doing? And maybe what are some things that you've seen that are kind of common boo-boos, right, that people have that they should avoid?
Well, I'll tell you, if somebody wants to start some sort of business where they want to coach or mentor people, and this is going to sound odd, my recommendation would not be to do a course first. It would be not to do a course immediately.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing that people need to learn, and this is one of the things that we teach, and I'm totally adamant about it, is essentially if you want to coach people, fill your one-to-one calendar, fill your one-to-one coaching, sell your one-to-one coaching. That's your high ticket program. It's your high level program. Learn the process of moving people from cold to sold for that one piece.
Right.
Because here's what happens. This is, you want to do active income first, then you want to do leverage, then you want to do passive. Active, leverage, passive. So you fill the
Sure.
one-to-one. So say you get 5, 6, 7 one-to-one clients, right? You start coaching and mentoring people on this thing, like how to make more money on Zoom, for example. So you bring
Right.
some people in one-to-one. What'll happen is as you're coaching them one-to-one, you're going to find these key concepts. All right, here's your key concepts. Here's the different things you keep teaching. These are the things that keep coming up in the coaching, right? You take those key concepts, and each one of those key concepts can become a module for a group program, right?
Sure.
So then you in a group program, like you got 10 people in it, everybody pays for it, you're doing group calls, right? But it's a leveraged situation because more than one person is paying you for your time and energy, right? So you've got your one-to-one full. Now you take that information, you use it to create modules for a group program, right? You record the group program. That group program recording turns into something called a signature system.
Yeah.
So this is your signature system for how you move a person from point A to point B, right? So now you've got your signature system. Then you can take all the modules of your signature system. You can pull those out,
Right.
and sell each individual module
As part of a larger as a larger course.
Yes, you see what I mean? But it starts from the top. It starts active income first, then leveraged, then passive, right?
Yeah.
Your highest ticket program, you learn to sell that first, then you sell your group, then you sell your course or your online program that's everybody listens to it online. It's done on a platform like Kajabi or something like that. So I just think the order of which it's done is super important, because what people want to do is they want to create this course, and then they want to launch it online and get all these buyers and make money as they sit on the beach. And
Right.
folks, the percentage of people that can actually get that done, it will take you out of business if you try to do that first. I am telling you, I have seen it a million times.
Wow.
Sell some one-to-one services. And if you don't want to do one-to-one, then sell some group services, right? But don't jump right to course,
Right.
because it's incredibly expensive to promote. People making a funnel. If you've never made a funnel before, it is not a small job to make a funnel. When you
Right.
start at the top and you sell active income first, like the one-to-one first, what happens is you're generating capital. That capital keeps you in business. It keeps the bills paid.
Yeah.
And then you can take some of that capital and you can invest it in different areas that might allow you to get a great funnel. But don't
Yes.
start with a course.
They'll start with that. Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And, kind of that process, because, I hear people that they always want to do that, and they do start at that end. They want to jump right to passive, right? That
Right.
passive income piece. And you kind of mentioned something that it really kind of touched me, which is, you're starting with that one-to-one. This audience has heard me say this 1,000 times, Chris, and that's, you have to build up your credibility. I think a lot of times, even if you've been doing something for some time, you kind of have to introduce yourself or even reintroduce yourself to people and to your audience, to build that credibility, to build that trust and that confidence. And oftentimes people will circumnavigate that because they want the glory of the end result, right? Like you say, people are buying my $3,000 course and I'm sitting somewhere in Bermuda, right? But instead, like you say, you have to start the active way, which is, and I'm doing that now. So I'm doing kind of, and I'm doing it at a free rate, some real estate course stuff on Zoom. And then I'm working with people individually. So I'm kind of doing this like from a group standpoint, Chris, so I'll max out Zoom, right? And have 100 people on there. And then from that, those that are maybe a little bit more serious or really engaged, I end up hearing from them. And then we start going into these one-on-ones, right?
Right.
And so my next piece of that is kind of like you said, is, creating content even from those one-on-ones in that group. I record the Zooms and all that. And then at some point down the line, as I acquire the information and learn from people as to what their biggest desires are, what their struggles are, all those type of things. And then I can package that together to address those needs. And then, like you say, create that funnel. But first, I've created this kind of pathway of credibility.
Yeah, credibility is important. And listen, Champion, if you're able to consistently generate an audience of 100 people for some teaching on real estate investing, the thing that I would be doing is I would, at the end of that call, what I would do is I would actually have a really soft invitation to a private call with you.
Yes.
Give people a soft invitation to a private call with you. And then on that private call, you talk about what they want from real estate investing, where they want to get, where they are now. What are the things that they need to know and learn to get to where they want to go? And then you can immediately offer them coaching services to take them there. I would do that. I would do that right away, because if you're consistently able to put 100 people on a webinar on this, you're missing a huge opportunity. Just lead them right to calls. Lead them right to calls, and those calls become sales calls, and they become one-to-one clients. So that's what I'd be doing with that. Now, then you'd have your one-to-one, your top of the, I call it the money mountain. Your top of the money mountain could be taking shape at that particular time. And then you get 5 or 6 people that you're coaching one-to-one, and now you start working on your group, and then go on from there. That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Chris. No, that's great feedback for myself and for others that are listening and kind of in that same boat. So definitely appreciate that. Let's talk about, kind of engaging in how you help people with their coaching platform during the pandemic, right? So we're now almost a year in to this global pandemic. And who knows? We still don't know. I don't think any much better of how the future is going to, unfold here. Although there's vaccination stuff that has started, we don't know. That's probably going to take the rest of this year and maybe even into 2022. But what do you see if you were to compare and contrast, what your clients are doing pre-pandemic? So coming out of 2019. And the first of 2020, and then once the pandemic hit, kind of compare and contrast those kind of two lanes, because now it's gotten to the point where those are almost like two different worlds that we were living in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just use my company as an example. My company, all my marketing prior to the pandemic was done through speaking. So I was speaking publicly. I'd get on stages. I got on stages all over the country. I got on stages all over the world, here all the way to South Africa. I was getting on stages. But that's how I would fill my practice, as I'd go in, I'd do the talks, and then invite people into a next step, and then they'd end up hiring me. So, and then the pandemic hits, and it's like all the speaking gigs are canceled. So, what we had to do, and what I'm telling clients to do, is we had to find an online platform that we could use and that we could master. And when I say master, like, how can we consistently generate revenue on a platform? And that, and notice I said a platform. I think where people go wrong is they try to maximize all the platforms. They're trying to work on LinkedIn, and they're trying to work on Twitter, and they're over here, and they're in Clubhouse, and they're over here on Facebook, and they're over here, like, you're all over the damn place. And it's like trying to dig 17 wells, and you're digging, and not one of your wells is hitting water because you're digging 17 wells.
It's the old Russian proverb. If you chase 2 rabbits, right, you won't catch either one.
Right. They get away. So, like, pick one platform. We picked one platform. Where is your target market? Where's mine? Mine's on Facebook. So we started, and I love speaking. So I said, okay, I need a way that I can launch products, programs, and services where I can speak and I can be in front of a group. So guess what we did? Started a live Facebook group, right? I went on my Facebook platform, right? My private page, and I started saying, hey, I'm doing this group over here. It's called Sales Mastery Inner Circle. If you're here in this position and you want to learn how to sell high ticket programs, you pop over here, and this is the place, and we're going to do free training every week, and blah, 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 blah. So I start everything that I did, my email sequences. I did go into my LinkedIn platform. I went into my LinkedIn and I said, hey, if you resonate with learning how to sell high ticket programs, this is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. I hit a nice invitation. I sent them one invite, and I pulled a lot of my LinkedIn people right into my Facebook group.
There you go.
So I built a private Facebook group, and then I started going live inside of that Facebook group every week and teaching for free. Every Thursday, 1 p.m., go in, teach. Then I started doing live laser sessions inside of the group. I did those on Tuesdays, laser coaching sessions, 3 10-minute sessions, complimentary, right on camera, right? Right on StreamYard. So everybody could come and watch these coaching sessions. So we built up all this engagement. Soon as the group hit 300 people, I went in and I launched this thing that we call the Income Accelerator Challenge. And that's 5 days of teaching. And on each day I teach 45 minutes, right? And then on day 4, I made an offer. I'd make an offer into a program. And then on day 5, I did some mindset content. And then we had all the way up to day 10. So day 6, 7, 8, and 9, we did client testimonials, interviews, pop-up lives, bonus teaching, Q&As, all this stuff. First time we did that, 300,000 in revenue.
Wow.
Right? Then we did it again in September, $740,000 in revenue. Then we took that same launch method, condensed it into a 5-day training rather than 10, because we had 5 days of training and then 5 days of selling.
Yes.
So in December, what we decided to do was 2 days of training and 3 days of selling. Well, guess what? We closed $500,000.
Wow.
So we picked a platform. So that's what I'm saying here. Like the first thing was mindset, though, Champron. Like
sure.
I said to myself and I said to my team, I said, this pandemic is giving us an opportunity to completely redefine how we do business. And we can make a decision that this pandemic can be the thing that actually stops us, or it can be the thing that really propels our business. This pandemic, for my company, we added an income stream since March of like, added up, what's 300 plus 700 plus 500? That's the amount of revenue we added to our business because of the pandemic. There's no way in heck I would have gone online and looked for one platform and mastered one platform if it wasn't for the pandemic. I was forced to pivot.
Right.
And
I love that.
But we viewed it as an opportunity. We didn't view it as, oh my God, look at this horrible thing that's happening. It was like, this is an opportunity. Now, what we've since done is we've bought our dream house, because now I don't have to travel all over the world. Right, to market. I'm not on planes all the time. I'm home. So we bought our dream house. My God, I put a home gym in here. We put a sauna in here. We got a theater. We've got a hot tub. We've got all this stuff. We just built this beautiful space that we don't have to leave.
Right.
If we don't wanna, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we're staying home a lot. So I'm just, I get so fired up about this because it started with choosing to view the pandemic as an opportunity. Look, it sucks. There's nothing about it that doesn't suck. I'm not here to say it doesn't suck, but I am here to say that you can choose how you respond to it.
Yes. And that's so much of life is how you respond to things. What is that? 90% of of life is just how you respond, right?
How you can respond.
And so you challenge the mindset. And one of the things that you stated, Chris, was how you and your team pivot. You made the conscious choice to pivot. That there's some business owners you and I've talked to, and we've seen them. Some were the ostrich, right? When this came, they stuck their head in the ground, right? And they hunkered down. Some just kind of whined and griped about it, right? They whine, gripe, they bitch about it, that sort of thing, right? And they brought a lot of negative energy kind of around it. Some refused to change, right? This is how we've done it since 18 whatever, and this is how we'll always do it, right? Whether it kills us or not, right? And then there are folks like yourself who make that conscious decision to say, you know what? Yes, this is terrible, right? It presents, some obstacles. However, we're going to be nimble, we're going to be agile, and we're going to have the right attitude that's going to, get into our mind and then to our heart. And then that's going to come through to our customer base and to our prospects, right? And then we're going to be smart about it, right? And be efficient. And so by making those conscious decisions, and I'm saying that for a reason, because for those of us that are listening here, challenging your mindset that now that we're coming up almost a year into the pandemic, people start getting weary, right? This is, they start whining and griping even more again, right? God, it's taking them so long to get the vaccine. When am I going to be able to do this? And when can I travel? And when can I, instead of finding, like you say, that opportunity and challenging their mindset. And then the last thing, Chris, is, when you talk about using one platform, that's kind of against conventional wisdom, because most people think that I got to have, these marketing people tell you got to have a presence everywhere. Every time a social media jumps out, you mention Clubhouse. I think some people saw Clubhouse as this opportunity to, I could be this influencer if I adopt it quick, right? And so you got people that spend all day on Clubhouse, and I don't know if they ever go execute anything that they talk about doing. Like, how can you?
No,
You know, I get on a Clubhouse room. I'll go into a Clubhouse room, not to get into a rant, Chris, but one of the moderators will go, "Yeah, we've had this room open since 11 p.m. last night," and I'm thinking, okay, wait, so when was anybody actually doing any work? You've been open since you've had this open since 11 p.m. I know people are dropping in and out, but some people are staying on this thing 10, 11, 12 hours a day, and they're just taking notes, but they don't really go execute anything. They just gather these notes.
Makes me they're just addicted to acquiring knowledge and addicted to holding on to maybe holding on to possibility, but which is all well and good, but knowing things is not enough.
Right.
None of us are compensated, Champron, based on what we know. We're compensated based on who we're being.
Right.
So, I mean, if you got a pen, write that down. Nobody's compensated based on what we know. We are compensated based on who we are being. So you have to look at yourself. Right. You have to look at your business. You have to take an honest look, because guess what? I got a lot of concepts, and I can give you concepts after concepts and systems after systems. But if you are not going out and you're not exercising a powerful way of being in the execution of those concepts, then they're all going to fall flat.
Yeah.
Knowing means nothing.
Yeah. And I think some people do that as I don't know if it's a crutch, Chris, or as an excuse for not executing. I'm acquiring this knowledge. It's kind of like how people use, college kind of coming into the 21st century where, I don't want to have to be accountable to executing. So I'll just get a student loan and go back to school. Right. And I see somebody doing something that doesn't look like it takes a lot of effort, but they're making money from it. So then I'll go back and try to get my degree in that. And it's really just because then nobody holds me accountable for executing. Right. I'm in school.
I'm still learning.
Right. Yeah. I'm still incubating. Right. So that now I'm not accountable to myself or anybody else. So I can always be in that mode. I don't want to have to take the risk. I want to try to shield myself from any, potential losses. So I'll just sit and I'll sit in class. Right. And then now I'm never accountable. And so, again, the opportunity to challenge your mindset and to go out and execute, I think is tremendous. And that makes the difference between the people that are actually, doing this, in real life, and then the people who just talk about it. Right.
And universal law supports this. There's a universal law that I live by, and I'm going to share it here. It's the law of polarity. Yeah. Universal law of polarity. Law of polarity says everything in the universe has an opposite and it exists at the same time. Yeah. Everything in the universe has an opposite and it exists at the same time. Think about it. You can't have left without also having right. Mm-hmm. You can't have up without having down, because nothing would be down if we didn't have up to compare it to. Right. Right. You can't have in without out, hot without cold. We can go on forever. Everything in the universe has an opposite. It exists at the same time. Why does that apply to business? Well, it applies to business because if everything in the universe has an opposite and it exists at the same time, then if there's a problem, what else is there?
There's a solution. Right.
There's a solution. So every problem in the universe brings with it the solution. You cannot have a problem without also having a solution. It's impossible. And here's the thing with the law. The law doesn't care if you believe the law or not. The law just is.
Right.
There'll be a lot of people that are argue and say that that's bullshit. It's not bullshit. It's absolute truth. All it points to is, and I ask people every day, I say, look, because people come to me and they say, Chris, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because I know and I understand that every problem brings a solution. Here's why people have problems. They have problems because they're resisting a solution. Yes. They're in resistance. There's a level of resistance. It could be a belief system. It could be a confidence issue. It could be like I could sit here and tell you right now, Champron, guess what? You could start selling real estate coaching services right now for $30,000 a year. And you might go, well, I haven't got my name out there enough. Everybody will have a stuck story. Right. Right. But you got to realize if a problem's present, the solution's present, and it's present now. Not when you feel worth it, not in 3 months, not in 6 months, not when the economy recovers, not when, Trump's out of office or whatever goes on. The solution is present, and it's present now. So I
Yes.
want everybody to think about how you're behaving in your business and how you're behaving in your life, and how does your behavior change when you know that the solution is present. And you can literally go, okay, what am I resisting doing? Because that's the right question to ask. Not what do I do? What am I resisting doing? Because there's something that's showing up in your experience that you've gone, maybe I should do that. But then you got the stuck story that says why you shouldn't. And then you don't. Well, guess what? It's those things that people resist that prevent them from stepping forward into their capability. It happens again and again. The solution becomes present. Now, here's the thing. The other thing that's really key here is understanding that when it comes to stepping into these things that you're resisting, no one understands it's going to be scary. No one understands it's going to be super uncomfortable. Usually it's expensive. It might be stepping into a program, getting some mentorship. It might be something like that. You know, you got to understand that it's going to be that way. Because, you know, that's where it all is. All of the success lies outside of the comfort zone. I've never seen that not to be true. You got to step outside of the comfort zone.
Right.
And man, so when these things show up, these opportunities, you have to be willing to step in faith. You've got to step in faith, meaning I can't see the whole direction, but I'm going anyway. You know, because I look back in my life and in my business, and I've done that so many times. Like I stepped into entrepreneurship. I quit a job. I had no idea how to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
But I had this feeling in my body and this inkling, hey, this is true for me. I'm stepping in. I move in faith. I was in business for less than a year, and I hired a mentor, Champion, for $75,000. It was 6 months of coaching for $75,000. I did not have $75,000.
Yeah.
I stepped in. I went in faith, right? Massive leap of faith. 99% of the population would have never made that investment. Well, that year, that was, again, $283,000 that year.
Yeah.
I can continue to tell stories again and again and again where this has been absolutely true. The house I'm sitting in, this house was $200,000 outside of our budget.
Wow.
Right? But I looked at it and I said, this is the house that's been presented. If the problem's present, so is the solution. What am I resisting? I'm resisting buying the house. Okay, I take the leap. I leap of faith. I come in, I get the darn house, stretches us financially. Within 60 days, Champion, we increased our revenue, our monthly revenue by 30 grand a month.
Wow.
Within 60 days of being in this house.
Yeah.
Leap of faith. We consistently move in faith when things show up. And I'm always asking myself, what am I resisting?
And so, Chris, you know, because that's heavy, man. You dropped this heavy on us, and that's rich. By taking that leap of faith, what it sounds like is that extra kind of little bit of, I don't want to say pain point, but that extra pressure to then perform, right? So you take the leap of faith. Most people don't have that. Like you say, that 99%, 1%, right? You know, there's all kind of factors into that, but most people will not, that's too risky for them, right?
Right.
They see that or they hear that and they think, you know, they, like you say, the ceiling drops on them and they think, you know, of all the what ifs of what can go wrong. You know, I talk, you know, always, you know, what I tell people oftentimes when I'm kind of coaching them is write down, you know, so, you know, address the what ifs, right? Okay, let's write them all down. And everybody can write down a whole sheet of paper and maybe 2 sheets of paper of everything that can go wrong, right? You know, with anything. Well, what happens if it doesn't work out and the wife leaves me? You know, what happens if the husband runs off and is cheating with everybody and not everybody knows but me? Right? What happens if the business doesn't do this? And what happens if this person doesn't? And what happens? You know, what happens? Right? And it's all the, you know, the obstacles, the challenges.
So,
you know,
I'll tell you exactly why that happens. So that happens because we have this thing called an ego, right? Our ego is our sense of self. Your ego is your current sense of self.
True.
Right? Current sense of self. Right? The ego doesn't care if our belief system serves us or not. All the ego cares about is its own survival. Right? So here's what happens when somebody comes in with an opportunity to step forward and step in and grow. That is a threat to the ego.
Hey,
it threatens the ego because it threatens the current sense of self. So of course the ego is going to go, what if, what if, what if, what if? It's what it's supposed to do because it's trying to protect its own survival.
Yes.
Right? So
Wow.
that's why faith comes in. Because if we keep making our decisions based on the thinking that is currently residing in your brain, guess what? That thinking has you here.
Right.
That thinking isn't the thinking that's going to get you to the level you're trying to get to.
Right.
Right? Here's the problem, Champ Ron. People they're trying to go and escalate and make more money, for example. Everybody
Right.
wants to come, they come in and say, I want to make more money. I want to make more money. How do I make more money? We'll get to $1 million. We'll get to $1 million. Well, guess what? To get to $1 million, you have to break your current rules around money. Because your current rules about money are what have you where you are.
Right.
So look, if your rule is not to invest heavily, well, guess what? That rule, you're going to have to break that rule. If that is a rule that you are currently living by and you want a different result, you will not get a different result with the same rules.
Right.
You have to break your rules. So you've got to do that inquiry. You got to do that. You got to take a look and you got to say, what are the rules that I'm living by in my business that are creating my current result? And the solution is to break them.
Right. And so then someone that may hear that, right? And maybe they're struggling financially, right? So
Sure.
they came into 2021 with, a couple $100 in the checking account, maybe little to no savings. They're kind of hand to mouth, check to check. And so they hear that and they say, God, but God, Champ Ron, Chris, God, it's just so hard. I've got these bills and, everybody, calls and writes me about money that I owe them. And, how can I invest heavy, right? How can I start investing heavy, right? What would you say to those folks, Chris?
Well, and heavy is invest heavy for what heavy is for you.
Right.
What's heavy for you?
There
you know
you
what I mean? Heavy might be spending $500 on a course that'll teach you how to do blank.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's all relative. But I'm going to go right back to what I said earlier. What I would tell that person is if you're wanting to move forward and maybe you've got an idea about business or you've got something and you're in that space, ask yourself the question I talked about. What are you resisting doing? And pay really close attention to whatever that answer is.
Yes.
Because that is likely the thing that you need to do. Whatever the answer is to that question, find a way to do that. And that might be money related in terms of investing. It might not. It might be something else. It might be letting go of a friendship. It might be letting go of whatever. It might be leaving a job. It might be applying for another job that you've always wanted to apply for. It might be asking for the raise that you haven't been willing to ask for. What is it that you're resisting doing and take?
Well, Chris, that's rich. That is rich to say the least, man. That's rich.
We'll do a second interview and we'll go right into that. Like we'll talk about nothing but that because we could do a day on that.
You've already read my mind. I mean, we could put, we could work together, put a course together just on that.
Just on that topic. But listen, folks, do I have time to tell a story about this? I want to tell one more story about it.
Please.
Now, listen. This is a very personal story. I like 5 years ago? Yeah, almost 6 years ago now. I had to rebrand my business. And this talks about faith and the power of taking these leaps of faith and understanding that the solution is present. And I want everybody to understand that I'm not sitting here just preaching this. This is how I live.
Yeah.
This is how I live. This is how I think. This is my it's a way of being for me. So I had to rebrand my company. The reason I had to rebrand is because I was dating my previous business partner. I learned that my previous business partner was having an affair, and the relationship ended abruptly. My house was gone, my business was gone, and my relationship was gone in one full swoop. Right? Yeah. So I was gutted, heartbroken, dealing with all the mess that comes from that. I'm not throwing her under the bus. I helped create that experience, right? We should have broken up a long time ago and that wouldn't have happened, right? Yeah. But here I was living at my dad's house, sleeping in my sister's princess bed. It had the tassel-y things and the whole thing. I was, 45 years old, sleeping in my sister's princess bed, truth. Yeah. Right. So here's what happens. I get this opportunity, Champ Ron, to take a trip to Italy. And I was like, the Italy trip was for a branding retreat. Now, here's the thing. It was $16,000 to go on this retreat. I had no money. I was living at my dad's house. My business was just shut, and I was brokenhearted. This
Wow.
is the situation that I was in, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm going, oh my God, like what's going on here? I had 2 calls with the person that was selling it. On the 3rd call, she basically said to me this. She said, Chris, she said, if you don't come on this retreat, will you be out of integrity with what you teach?
Mm.
Because she knows my teaching. She knows I talk about faith.
Yeah.
She says, I know I tell people all the time that if the opportunity showed up, you're worthy of it now.
Yeah.
But here I am with this opportunity to take this trip and I'm not taking it. Like, am I out of integrity with my teaching? As soon as I realized I was out of integrity, I went, oh my gosh, I've got to go. So I handed
Yeah.
her my credit card and I bought the retreat. And
Yeah.
I took my brokenhearted little ass on an airplane. I brought my journal. I told everybody, I said, Champ Ron, I said, I'm going to write the male version of Eat, Pray, Love.
Right.
I am brokenhearted. I'm going to eat me some freaking Italian cookies and I'm going to cry and I'm going to write and I'm going to meditate. So I get on to Italy and I've never been overseas at this time.
Yeah.
At this particular, I've never been overseas. So I
Right.
head overseas. I'm going, oh my God, nobody's going to speak English. I'm all brokenhearted. I get there. Listen, I'm writing. The retreat begins. I'm standing in the lobby, and the first 2 people from the retreat are there, and you know they were this 2 ladies in their 60s, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and there's only one other person that is going to be in this retreat. I hear the clank of the high heels coming. I'm like, oh gosh, clinkety clink, high heels. There's hope here. Person comes in, shakes my hand. I look at her, I shake her hand, and I go, oh my God, there you are. On that day, at that moment, I met my wife.
Wow.
I met my wife on that retreat.
And had
Who
you
I
not?
now run a multiple 7-figure company with. My wife is the CEO of this company.
Yeah.
And I went on that trip because I know and I understand the law of polarity, and because I know and I understand the power of faith.
Wow, that's tremendous and rich, Chris. And to think, if you had not gone, if you had
Oh,
succumbed to your that mental state of where you were at that point, which to many people, to that 99% of people, would have been understandable, right?
totally. Nobody would have
Everything
faulted
that
me
you've been
for
through.
staying home.
Right,
Nobody
right.
would have faulted me. And I'm just telling you, this way of thinking, this way of being has absolutely changed my life. And it's like the top thing that I believe when it comes to mindset for success. No
Wow.
question.
Wow, that is tremendous and rich, just to say the least. Chris, thanks for sharing that story. For your transparency in that. Yeah, that helped me on a number of different fronts, and I hope MYB, for those of you that are listening, that Chris's story touched something within you as well of taking that step, and that you are worthy when opportunity comes to you. Now you're worthy now. Not
When
down
it's
the
been
line,
presented.
not
You
when the
can,
kids grow up, not any of that stuff, right?
from a
Uh,
spiritual perspective, you can look
yeah,
at it and you can say the universe brought it to you. You can say God brought it to you. You can
right.
say whatever you resonate with. For me, it's a God thing. I was like,
Yeah,
God brought Kate to me now. God brought this retreat to me now, not in 6 months. And who
right.
am I to say, the student's ready, teacher appears, but you got to be willing to take the leap.
There you go. That is tremendous. Chris, for those that are listening, I mean, we've got tremendous just content and gems from you today and insight. How can people connect with you? What's kind of a next step for those that are listening on how they can connect with you and your organization, and just learn more and see where there's synergy and where there's
Yeah.
value for them to really engage you guys and kind of go from there. How can they do that?
Yeah, the best place to find me is on my Facebook group that I talked about earlier. So it's a
Yeah.
private Facebook group. It's called Sales Mastery Inner Circle. So
Okay.
Sales Mastery Inner Circle on Facebook. If you want to see my website, you sure can. It's chriskenneycoaching.com, chriskenneycoaching.com. And Kenney is spelled Kenney.
Yes.
So best place though, Sales Mastery Inner Circle. We do free teaching in there every single week. I do a live show on Thursdays at 1 p.m. I do laser sessions every Tuesday at 1 p.m. So you can even get a free laser session with me, which is a 10-minute coaching session. And that's all complimentary right here on StreamYard, just like what we're doing here.
Yeah. Excellent. No, I love that, Chris. And so MYB, the link actually to the Facebook group, Sales Mastery Inner Circle, is in the show notes, as well as Chris's website, chriskenneycoaching.com. That's all right there in the show notes. And so make sure you click there, go right, join the group. Go, if you're serious, join the Facebook group, and then message the administrators and the admins in that group, and let them know that you heard Chris right here on the Mind Your Business podcast.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so definitely do that, MYB. But yeah, definitely click in the show notes. When you get done listening, go ahead and go join the group. I'm going to do the same because I want to be able to connect. I want to be able to learn more, and that way, myself and many others of you that are action takers can go out and be just a little bit better for those in our circle. And as we do that, and that's the purpose of this podcast, and Chris has touched on really the essence of why I do this, why I've done this for now over 3.5 years. It's not just to come on here and talk. It's not just to be a big shot. It's so you bring people like Chris and the many other guests that I've had, and bring you guys value and people that you can connect with. And now you know about a Facebook group that you may not have ever come across that has tremendous value. And so that's what I've always looked to do. And Chris has given me an opportunity to do that. And so I'm very appreciative. And, if you're serious and you're an action taker, I challenge you, go and join the Facebook group, Sales Mastery Inner Circle. Join the group and then be an active participant in the group. Don't just go there and just just sit on the couch and just lay on the couch, right? Go and be an active participant, and trust me, if you love what you've heard today, you will gain great value by doing so. Chris Kenney's our guest today. He's sought after wealth mentor, and like you've heard today, just tremendous value. To say the least. So, listen, Chris, thank you so much for taking time. I know that there are a lot of things you could have been doing during this time, but you invested this time in me and in this audience. And, that goes without saying. We're definitely appreciative.
Oh, well, thank you to you as well for showing up powerfully, for starting the podcast, taking the risk. I know the first one was probably uncomfortable, right? Several years back. But,
the first 20.
First 20, shaking a little bit, getting it done. But thanks for who you be in the world and allowing me to be part of your space. I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. And listen, MYB, again, make sure that you connect with Chris. Go on Facebook, the Sales Mastery Inner Circle. Make sure, again, that you join the group. And again, let them know that you heard him right here on the Mind Your Business podcast. And support, Chris and his team. We love to support small business and, support what, people are doing to help, the community. And, that's the backbone of this country. And now you have an opportunity to do it once again with Chris and his organization. Don't forget me, champronbrooks.com. Email me, ron@themybpodcast.com. Thank you so much for those that email me. I read everyone. I respond to everyone. I love to get your feedback, good, bad, and ugly. I love it all. So bring it on. I've got the gator skin. And so you won't offend me at all, but I want to make sure that this is a great platform for you and that you get the value. And so if there's something that you love, definitely let me know there. If there's something you're kind of like, or if there's something you really just don't like, share that all with me. I really appreciate it. It all has tremendous value. And so I thank you for those of you that do that. I've been able to, I hope make some improvements to the podcast over time. And that's come a great bit from your feedback. So thank you so much. Listen, I always leave you with this word that no matter where you're from, no matter what side of the tracks you come from, no matter what cards you were dealt in life, there are three things that we all have in common. Doesn't matter, what your color is, your ethnicity, any of that. We all have three things in common. We all want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, and a little bit better for our communities. And if we keep that in mind, hopefully before you storm the Capitol building, if we keep all that in mind as we interact with each other, right, we'll all collectively make this place a little bit better, right? We may not like the results of everything that happens or occurs or that we participate in, but just from the human state, again, we all want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, and a little bit better for our communities. Remember that with everybody that you interact with. It's not about blue or red. It's not about black and white. It's not about this and that. We're all kind of in this together. Okay. So that, instead of looking for the things that divide us, look at the things. There's so many things that we have in common, and those three things are definitely there. So I leave you with that word, as I do after every episode, is that remind yourself of that with everybody that you come in contact with, right? Whether they're in your circle and that sort of thing, or if it's someone you see along the street as you're passing by. Remember that those three areas come into play for all of us. All right. I wish you to be the best. Thank you so much again to our guest today, Chris Kenney. And thank you to all of you for your support ongoing of the podcast. And we're going to keep going. We'll be back shortly with episode number 240. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Take care.